Today we're going to begin discussing Sun Tzu's The Art of War. A lot of you are probably thinking this is a funny text to be reading for a class that's devoted to peacekeeping, and I couldn't agree with you more in some ways. But I'd like to sort of make my case for why I think this is an important text for us to be reading in a class such as this. The Art of War is basically a set of instructions for how we should fight war and how we should fight to win. He's not interested in discussing war as a philosophical topic or even going into why it is that we engage in war. He's just saying, if you're going to fight, you should fight to win, and here's how to do it. As a class, I'd like for us to start to investigate the dynamics, the means, and the methods of war. We want to understand how wars are fought in order to prevent conflict. In a manner of speaking, we could say that the art of war is a yang, and we are looking for its yin. It has a strong force that it's putting forward, and we're trying to find a weakness in that force in order to sort of subvert it and pacify it. Second, we can consider our reading of the art of war as something of a psychological investigation. We'll be considering the mind behind the mind, the passions behind this strategist. It's interesting that within the art of war we hear almost nothing of ethics or morality. Granted, Sun Tzu does mention the idea of the Tao in the first chapter, but he's going to quickly commandeer this for his ideas of war and war making, so it's not the ethical Tao. I would say that Sun Tzu is not really interested in ethics at all. He doesn't inquire about who's fighting whom and for what reason. I'm going to say that Sun Tzu is an exemplar of the kind of thinking which suggests hideous acts and the implementations of weapons and tactics which seem unconscionable even against one's worst enemy. For this class, I'd like for us to watch him and learn how he thinks. So next, I feel obliged to mention what sort of a reading we're going to be doing with this text, or what we're going to be doing with this text. The Art of War is a very old text, probably written somewhere around the middle of the 4th century BCE, long time ago. It's written in Chinese, which I don't know, and it's a very arcane and poetic Chinese, so that sort of gives us a few different levels of difference between our spoken English and what's going on with this text. I'm also not a master of Chinese history or of Chinese wars or war theory in general. So there's a lot that I'm not going to be able to speak to, and if some of you who are watching have expertise in those areas, I look forward to your comments, and you can definitely bring a lot to this sort of reading, but I just want to be honest about what I feel like my capacities are going to be. What I want to do is to put the Art of War under sort of a literary lens, on the one hand. So we'll be talking about genre, its style, argumentation, things like that people who are trained in literature are supposed to be able to do. The next thing I'd like to do is to approach it from the standpoint of a Tai Chi practitioner, which I've been trained in for a little while now, and I want to look at how it is that this philosophy that's espoused in the Art of War is going to find its way into Tai Chi Chuan, a specific kind of martial art, which I think has interesting resonances with the Art of War. I wanted now to talk about some of the biographic and literary aspects of the Art of War. Biography's not so interesting. We don't know much at all about Sun Tzu, whether he existed, whether the Sun Tzu who did exist actually did write our text for the Art of War, whether one person wrote the Art of War or many people. As John Minford writes in the introduction, the Art of War is probably a collection of a lot of sayings that were assembled from many different authors, and then they were sort of consolidated. So we see something like this within biblical scholarship, for example. One idea is that what we have for the Pentateuch, the first 5 books of the Old Testament or of the Hebrew Bible, were written by different people throughout hundreds of years, maybe thousands of years, and that at some point someone consolidated all of these and sort of wove them together, a redactor or an editor. And so you see evidence of different authors, maybe older words that were being used or a specific sort of poetic style that was used. But you also see that there's sort of a guiding thread, that someone is sort of taking these many texts and put them together and given them a sense of unity and coherence. And I think it's safe to say that the same sort of thing is going on within the Art of War. So we'll see within a chapter a lot of similar techniques that are being used. There's a flow within the chapter, but then you'll also see this start to break apart a little bit. I'll be making note of this as we go through the chapter. So if it's not completely clear what I'm talking about yet, I hope that it will be in the course of our discussion. Finally, I just wanted to mention briefly how it is that you should be reading The Art of War, for this class anyway. Basically, you have two sorts of options. You can either start on page 13, I believe it is, and read it all the way through. Sorry, page 3, and read it all the way through. Or you can start at page 99 and read it through with commentaries. That's your choice. The commentaries are often very useful. Sometimes they give historical backgrounds. Sometimes it's just not clear what the text means by itself, and it's sort of nice to have someone who spent a lot more time than any of us to give you some ideas for what it might mean. Second, just try to think about how it could apply to your life, to certain sorts of situations. You will have a task, which I will let you know about in just a little bit here, to sort of apply the Art of War to your life or to an imaginary situation. It's an immensely practical book, that's why it was written, so hopefully some little things should be going off in your head. And finally, I just wanted to repeat the warning here on page 32 of the introduction. That's XXXII. This is from a Ming Dynasty thinker, and it says, "Emerge from the mud untainted. Understand cunning, but do not use it." So that's sort of what we're trying to do with this class. We want to read the Art of War, but not go out and wage war. That would be a poor application of the text, at least from the perspective of a peacemaking class.